Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of With Conviction, a story of hope, horror, and history. My name is Rain, my pronouns are she, her, and I am your GM for this adventure. With me are my heroes for this campaign. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Hi there. I'm Alice. I use she and they pronouns, and I play Desdemona Hartwood, who also uses she and they pronouns. And she is a gothy, punky magical girl with a heart of pink who is feeling significantly better after a lot of pancakes and is thinking about what it would be like to make a snow angel, but the snow is pancake.
I am Skylin. My pronouns are they and them, and I play Chris Whitlock, whose pronouns are she or any. Chris is our very sporty, magical not a girl, and she is absolutely excited to be sitting in the middle of a pancake breakfast with the whole team around her.
And I'm Rob. I play Eliza. My pronouns are he, him. Eliza's are she, her. And Eliza is having a good time at this breakfast and really hoping that nothing goes horribly wrong.
All right, so the last that we had left you, you had made some plans to check out a place that one of these monsters had been staking out and to attempt to set some bait for one of these creatures and see if you can follow it back to wherever it might have come from.
Actually had an idea as a group, Rain, that we want to push to you.
All right.
We were thinking that the pancake lunch with the whole team there could actually count as a build friendship day off action for the whole team.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I'm perfectly happy with that. Everyone go ahead and roll.
Okay.
Is it a flat roll for everybody, or
Yeah, how do we want to do this mechanically?
Depends on if you have a relevant skill.
see? I would say charm, but I don't think Chris actually used it here.
Okay.
I don't think any of Eliza's abilities would matter. So are we doing one roll for just everybody, or are we going down the
All
list?
three of you roll once.
Okay.
I know. I'd like to add endure for eating all those pancakes.
Did you roll for pancakes?
Did you roll for pancakes?
Oh, I didn't roll for pancakes.
Roll
I
for
did already
pancakes!
roll
Oh my
for the
god.
build friendship. So let me resolve that first. So I got an 8 on the dice for build friendship. Let me roll for pancakes.
Pancakes, pancakes,
Pancakes,
roll for
pancakes.
pancakes.
Ooh, yeah. Des must not be feeling very good. That's a 3.
Oh
Oof.
no.
Only 3 pancakes. Yeah,
She
everyone
was
notices that.
she was accidentally served the protein pancakes, and they made her way more full than she thought they were gonna.
Ah, okay.
It's all the
So,
umami.
what numbers? So, we know that Des got an 8, which means that she's able to improve her friendship with everyone else by everyone who is in the scene by 1 step. What about everyone else?
Eliza rolled a 7, so that's the same thing, right?
Chris rolled an 11.
All
Ooh.
right, yeah. Everyone increases their connections to everyone in the scene by 1 step.
All right. And what does the 11 that Chris rolled do?
If somebody had failed, it would have they would have treated their role as a partial success instead.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
Yeah. So you said you were going to check out that store.
Yeah, that seems to be the plan. So who is the bait?
When Eliza asked who should be the bait, Chris, she had been leaning over her food and like grinning wolfishly at Des. At that point, sort of like sits up to her very short but full height and sort of like wriggles her shoulders a little bit to almost as though like she was preening and goes, I think I'm your good fit for that.
All right. Do you want a partner?
Yeah, hot stuff. I think that might be good.
All right. Who's going with Chris?
I think Hazel looks at you, Eliza.
Yeah, I thought you were volunteering.
Oh, well, I'm thinking we've got two people who go in, talk to the pawn shop. Those people are going to be at risk, but we should also have somebody who's going to be there to tail the creature and be there to act against it. I think I should be on that team partly because I've got the car, and partly because I can be effective in a fight with these things without transforming visibly.
Do you think it would be fair to say that you all shake out the plan in the car on the way there?
I think so. We all snake out the
Yeah.
plan in the car on the way there.
I'm fine with that.
Snake
Rain is going to start rolling extra dice for the snake out jokes. Oh my
I-
goodness.
It's a
I
thing
did
now.
have to stop myself.
I didn't.
See, I love the snake out jokes. I am genuinely worried that Rain's gonna pull a Matt Mercer and start like punishing us for silly jokes.
No comment.
Oh no.
Oh no.
And we're in danger.
Um,
All right, so Diamond Pawn is a modest shop. There's bars over the windows and a camera peering down from above the front door. A bell chimes as you step inside. The air is cool, the climate control slightly undermined by poor insulation. The displays outline a U shape around the room, a melange of musical instruments, jewelry, firearms, and other valuables laid out for a customer. Off to one side is a keyboard on its stand. On the opposite wall, there's a fancy dress on display. A well kept toolbox is open to display its contents. On a rack on the wall behind the register is what appears to be an old saber, almost identical to the ones that you would return to the museum. Its sheath is weathered, but a half drawn blade reveals it has been cleaned for display. A man looks up from a logbook at the register. He looks small, his collared shirt and jeans quite tidy, his bald head contrasted with a well kept brown goatee. He adjusts his glasses as he examines the group.
Welcome, ladies. What can I do for you?
Sorry, I am suddenly have the loading screen.
all the screaming internally.
The suddenly voiced NPC throwing everyone off.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
When I said I was excited for this session.
So Chris walks in with a couple of swords in a blanket that is being borrowed from Eliza's car, and she says, "Good afternoon. I have a couple swords that I would like to have appraised, if you could, please."
Sure. Let's take a look at them.
She sets him down on the counter and just sort of stands and waits.
He looks them over and it takes a minute. He's about to say something, and then a young man sticks out his head from a door marked employees only. Call for you, sir.
Right. Take over from me, please.
No problem. The young man steps out. He hands the phone off to the older man and comes to the counter and looks between the three of you. All right. Sorry about that. I'm Nick. How can I help?
I was just asking to see if we could get these appraised, please. And she gestures to the swords in front of them.
Sure. How much do you know about these? He looks significantly less familiar with this process than the older man did.
Chris kind of smiles and shrugs and looks to Hazel.
It's just something that I don't really have much of a use for these anymore, and so I was wondering what kind of price I could get for them. And the young man looks at him and is like, "All right, 1 second." He digs behind the counter and pulls up a book, starts thumbing through it, and is like, uh, hmm, okay. How does like um $100 sound to you?
Chris looks at Hazel and looks at the swords and sort of shrugs and says, "I think that's a decent appraisal. I think we're going to have to do some other research maybe and see what else we can find out about them, if that's okay. We can come back if we decide to sell them to you, for sure."
Oh, sure. Is there anything else I can help with?
GM, you described the sword hanging on the wall.
Mhm.
Is it prominently enough that Chris would notice it?
Yep, it's a centerpiece over the register.
Okay. So Chris then sees the sword, that's pretty obvious, And she says, I, hun, she turns to Hazel, hun, I know you don't have room for these anymore, but I'm curious just to compare them to the one that's on the wall. Could you do that for us, sir?
Sure. This one's a little bit more expensive. It's $300. It's a genuine Model 1850. He checks the tag. 1850 Army Staff and Field Officer sword. He pulls it off the wall and sets it on the counter. He's keeping his hand very close to it, obviously.
Chris takes a very close look at this sword just to catch all the details of it. Could I roll inspect?
Absolutely.
Oh god, that is a 4 total.
Oh,
Oh, it sure looks like a sword.
Hazel, did you get the details that he said?
Yeah. Why?
I just thought it might be something we could compare to the ones we brought in today. At least we can look it up and see if it's of any interest.
Uh, yeah, sure. Do you mind if I get a picture? Nick nods. She pulls out her camera, takes a nice neutral picture of it, and then puts the camera away. He hangs it back up on the wall.
Um, you don't have any other swords in the shop, do you?
Not right now, no.
Chris looks again to Hazel, and then back to Nick. And okay, I think that's all for us for today. Then, thank you.
Glad to help.
And Chris packs up the swords, leaving them a little bit more exposed than they were when she came in, and walks out.
All right.
can we do like a cut to the car group?
Absolutely.
All right, so I think we just get Eliza, who's sitting in the back seat, in the driver's seat. I'm picturing Dez in shotgun and Faith in the back watching the drone feeds.
Sounds good.
All right, so Eliza just leans back and asks Faith, "See any sign of movement?
Not yet.
Hmm. How's it feel being the whole God's eye view?"
I don't know if I go that far, but um, I mean, it's definitely a good. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, if it works out for you being our girl in the chair, I like that.
She smiles and shrugs.
All right, looks like they're coming out, and Eliza is now watching like corners and spots where she thinks something might emerge from if it was going to go for these two.
Roll a spot roll.
I have no skills related to this unless you'll let me add reading patterns.
If you're looking for like places to hide, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
I'll I'll go with that.
Okay, sure. That's a +2 then. And I rolled a 12 on the dice. Wow.
Alrighty then. Yeah,
Right.
you spot a couple of different places. There's a blind spot in the camera coverage of the building around one of the corners where some bushes grow a little bit too close. There's some buildings across the road that look like that might be an unlikely approach, but an approach. You spot a couple other locations. But yeah, you definitely feel like you have a good sense of all the angles of approach toward this building.
All right. And Desdemona, keep an eye on those bushes. That seems like our most likely spot.
Okay, I will keep an eye out. Do I need to roll for that, or can I just look?
Yeah, you can just look.
And Eliza is jumping through the other spots she identified as possible places someone would be lurking.
At this time of day, as far as you can tell, it doesn't look like anyone is there.
Well, she's just going to wait until the inside team gets back in the car.
It's not too long before Chris is knocking on the back window to have the car unlocked so she can open the hatch.
Eliza unlocks it.
She opens the hatch and puts the swords away, and then hops in the back seat and says, we saw an old sword. Hazel grabbed a photo.
Oh, can I see?
Hazel shows you the photo on the camera. Yeah, it's the exact same kind of sword that was stolen from the museum.
Huh. That's she relays that. That's the exact same kind of sword that was stolen from the museum.
Kind of? Or the sword?
It's not the same one, but these were like mass produced, manufactured. It's one of the part of the same design.
So if they show up here to steal this sword, we we can feel reasonably confident that they need this kind of sword for whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah, I've been assuming it was one sword they needed and they weren't sure which, but it could be that they need just any sword from the Civil War or any sort. I don't know. This is weird.
Do we have two places to watch then?
We do. We've got the museum and the pawn shop here.
So then should we do like a split watch thing, or should
I've
we
got an
commit?
idea.
Okay.
Eliza looks at the picture of the sword on Hazel's phone and just 300? Yeah, I can swing that.
The picture was on Hazel's camera.
Camera, right, not her phone. I forgot she has the standalone camera. Either way, yeah. Eliza has made a decision. If this thing's important, then she has a magical clue. If not, she has a cool sword. So,
But the point of like not selling the swords here, aside from potentially not giving the cops something to poke at us about, is so that we have somewhere specific for the monsters to go, right? If we have
I was thinking that I could bring it and keep it on me so that we cut down on how many places they might be able to get the sword. But you raise a good point. We want them to take it. Never mind. Okay, my bank account is safe.
not that I object to you getting a cool sword, but
I mean, I have like she gestures to the back of the car. I've got like 6 over there, plus the
that's a good point.
magical one. So
Aren't those stolen?
yeah, and I do have a post up on
Little
Reddit about that.
harder.
She actually like as that's brought up, pulls up her phone and checks Reddit to see if she has any responses about the stolen swords.
I think there are some, yeah.
Okay, well, she'll go through that later. So no sign of baddies, right?
Not not right now.
Did anybody see anything weird or creepy inside? Like, was the proprietor of the pawn shop actually some sort of evil guy played by Christopher Lee? Or
He got called away.
I don't feel like that's anything.
So is the game plan now that we watch the museum and the pawn shop and then
Here's
track them
here's my
both?
thought process.
Hmm.
They have stolen the sword from the museum twice at this point. Um,
Hmm.
if it's not the sword at the museum, if it's just a general sword, then it's okay to just post up here, because it's more likely that they'll try a different avenue of approach, assuming these things are intelligent enough to try that. Um, we, I think if we have time before nightfall, we should go check the museum and see if the sword got returned at all.
Yeah, that makes sense to Rob. So
Hazel chimes in. And what do we do when they ask?
when they ask what?
When they ask why we would ask about the sword being missing.
Oh,
Exactly.
I was there the other day. I returned the sword before it got stolen again. They probably won't think it's that weird if I show up again, right?
I mean,
How would
No.
I mean, how do you know that it's been stolen again, right?
Eliza pulls up the local newspaper on her phone, check if there's anything about it.
Doesn't appear to be anything.
Hmm.
I mean, you could just go in and ask them to tell you more about it.
Yeah, because I did say I wanted to tour it, but they had it closed because of the break-in. I could go check if it's open again.
Does roll I know a guy?
okay. That is +2. That is a 9.
You're pretty sure it's not going to be open. because you and your dad are going to be there tomorrow replacing glass.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, right. So, museum's not open. I guess we could try calling. We're
Wait, what?
My dad and I were gonna go there to replace some glass. I think it's maybe because of the break-in. Uh,
Your dad's a glass guy? Hmm.
yeah, sure. He knows lots of people, so he does he fixes lots of problems for lots of people.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so not that a locked door would stop an evil snake monster, but it will stop us.
Yeah. All right. Do we stick with the drone overnight snakeout plan?
Oh, we have the drone. Uh,
We've got
do
multiple
we
drones, right, Hazel?
She nods.
Which means we can
let's
cover both the museum and the pawn shop.
yeah, let's park ourselves in one location. And we will use the drones to watch the location that we're not at? Or do we want to be at a central location?
I
And
think central and to the northeast, and she is pulling up her map. Because these things always come from the northeast, Hazel said. Maybe they'll go back that way, is my guess. And that
okay.
leaves us in best position to intercept either one.
I like it when y'all come up with game plans together. This is really cool.
Good to hear it, Captain.
My teammates call me boss.
Oh, okay. I just guessed because you keep calling me coach, and I decided I like that, by the way.
Chris grins.
All right, so sounds like we have a plan. Now it's gonna be like 7 hours before nightfall. Eliza reaches over into her glove box, which is in front of Desdemona, pulls out a couple of decks of cards. Anyone want to learn Magic the Gathering?
And I assume we fast forward to night.
Presumably, yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, at some point in there, has to head out. She sends Jesse a text and asks Jesse to pick her up, not too far away from the pawn shop, so that they can go on that run. But it's just a simple shakeout run, and she's back in time for snaking out.
It's so hard
Yeah.
not to say it.
Des,
Mm-hmm.
are you sticking with the group? Are you staying out late?
Yeah. Yeah. I made a concession and got a concession, so I'll text my dad actually that I'm gonna be home late.
All right, take care.
Heart emoji.
So you all are posted up somewhere in the farmland that's northeast of town.
I think that makes sense, yeah.
All right. And you have the drones watching both the museum and the pawn shop.
Yeah, presumably we're trading off watching them because I imagine it gets really boring really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We have listened to most of Eliza's playlists at this point.
So the way that we can do this is that one person will roll and one other person can help. So who wants to be doing that?
Do we want Chris to roll inspect while she's watching an area, or Eliza rolling finding patterns?
One of you two, for
I
sure.
think inspect makes more sense for this.
Okay. So I'll roll inspect. Who's helping?
We're both we both have Chris as a friend, right?
In this case, because Chris is the one rolling, it matters what Chris considers you.
Oh, okay.
Des is now Chris's confidant.
Oh.
Really? Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, I can try to help. I don't have any skills. I don't think.
Help isn't a roll though. It's just an action you do.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought it was a roll.
Right, Rain?
Yeah, you just explain how you are helping, which in this case is trading off with Chris to keep everyone fresh. And
Okay,
then
great.
Chris will make that roll.
Okay.
And you are rolling inspect, which is at a +1.
Mm-hmm.
And you are getting the help from a confidant, which is +3, which means that you are hitting the maximum possible bonus for a roll, which is +4.
Okay. Well, that is an 11 on the dice.
Yeah, that'll do it.
So 15 total.
Yeah. All right. So,
DM does a 30 hit.
who among us has not asked that question?
I'm just gonna throw in. I think Hazel has gotten like really looped into Magic the Gathering after these last few hours because one of the decks that Eliza had in her glove box was an angel themed deck.
Hazel or Faye?
Sorry, Faith.
Yeah, I think she's definitely enjoying that. Hazel is far too wired for what's about to happen to really be able to focus on playing any games. She is sort of kicked up in the back, in the trunk of the car.
With the swords?
Yes, with the swords, ready to throw the hatch open. She's got her camera around her neck and one hand on her length of steel pipe. And she's just looking out in the dark.
She's not gonna swap out the pipe for one of the swords? Okay.
She's not sure that those swords are going to survive.
That's fair. Yeah.
She's just looking out into the dark. The sun goes down. The blue fades into purple, fades into red, fades into black. The stars start to come out, and everything's quiet. The drone feeds don't come back with anything. The hours tick by, punctuated primarily by the sound of cards being played and the occasional explanation of a rule. Around 10:30, Chris, you see something move in the bushes that Eliza had spotted earlier around the pawn shop. You watch snakes slither out of the darkness. One of them wraps itself around the camera while more begin to it's strange to watch them. In the darkness, it looks like they're burrowing through metal and glass as they go through the door. But your attention to detail tells you that it's not so much that they're burrowing, it's that the material is decaying around them. You watch the metal turn to rust and they tunnel inside. A figure strides out of the darkness, and it's strange to watch because it stops in front of the door and is standing perfectly still, but its body is writhing. It's not making any motions, it's not wavering on its feet, it's not doing anything that a human would do, but where its flesh should be, the things that form its silhouette is just a mass of snakes. And you hear an alarm go off, and moments later, the snakes slither back out with that sword you had seen, still with the price tag on it, being moved between a few of them through the hole that it had made in the door. These snakes slither up its body and reintegrate into the mass, and it is now holding the sword in its hands as it turns and disappears into the darkness again.
What they were missing at the museum was the certificate of authenticity on the sword.
Oh my god.
Clearly.
Okay, so we're gonna try to follow it, right? It's heading back into the darkness.
I was gonna say we're on the drone, like we're watching the drones, drone footage right now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, movement! And she points out to everybody who can see it what's happening. She points out the rusting, which I think Hazel would be impressed that she could even notice because the pixels are probably not that great.
These are good cameras.
I don't think it's the cameras.
Chris points out where this hive, Hazel called it, is going.
Yeah, it's heading toward that farmland that you are currently staking out. You've pulled off onto a side road leading through the forests and the fields and have pulled off onto the side.
I'm looking at the map. Would this be Redbud Road?
Yeah, we can say that.
All right.
So there's no direct way to get to where it is right now, but if you were to dismount, you could certainly get there.
So we're out. It's coming this way. We're out in front of it. Are we? You wanted to burn the den?
Yes.
Remind me. Okay, what's the plan here, Eliza?
We have the drones follow it. Wherever it goes, we'll intercept it there. And yeah, we want to find where it's coming from. So, and I think Eliza gets out a earbud and puts it in, and then calls Faith's phone so that Faith can keep them updated. Faith, you'll stay here, keep us updated on the drone feed, and
Gotcha.
we're gonna start heading in here. All right, team.
Hazel pops the hatch and hops out and takes a deep breath, hefts the pole in one hand. All right, ready?
I'm ready.
As I'll ever be.
Ready.
And Eliza actually reaches back into the car and reaches into the pile of swords that was in the hatch that Hazel was next to, and out of the assortment of swords grabs her actual magical sword, which has been there the whole time.
I love it.
Faith, stay safe. Let me know if you see anything, and take care of yourself, okay?
Faith looks around into the darkness, takes a deep breath, and nods. All right.
Eliza leaves her keys with Faith.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
So, I need everyone to make a roll related to moving quickly across rough terrain.
Closest thing I have is break and enter, and I don't think that applies.
I would be impressed if you could break and enter a tree.
I'll do it. Don't test me.
May I use endure
I think that makes sense.
just to maintain a sprint across this?
You mentioned
Mhm.
rough terrain. Am I using place or sprint?
I think place is appropriate here. This is all about
Okay.
figuring out where you're putting your feet, especially once you start getting toward the creek that's cutting through the area.
Okay.
So from the top, Des, what did you roll?
I got a 5 on the dice, plus 1 with endure. That is a 6.
Mm.
Oof.
Eliza?
A 9 on the dice with no modifiers.
All right. And Chris?
A 10 on the dice plus 2 is 12.
Chris, how much are you trying to get where you need to go? And how much are you trying to stick together with the others?
There's a moment where Chris scans the terrain in front of her and she knows that she can put her feet where she needs to quickly. And she turns to Eliza and goes, "Hey, I think I got this. I'm going to go ahead and try to cut it off."
Okay. Be safe.
And she goes.
Eliza, are you trying to get there as fast as you can, or are you going to slow down for Des?
Eliza is under no circumstances leaving Des behind.
That makes sense, and I believe that that is the complication to your success. You are able to get through this area using your fire to light the way, but taking the time to help Des get there with you is what slows you down a bit.
Okay.
Chris, you can see without much difficulty out here.
I do want to ask if this is leading the way into a stressful situation or not.
It absolutely is.
Cool. I will take that light shift trigger. She is at 3 light right now.
That's pretty good. So, you dash ahead of everyone else. You reach a small creek that is passing through there. It's, well, small is maybe a misnomer. The creek is maybe 10 yards wide and very slow and winding. It seems to, in some places, the land is fairly flat, but in other places it seems to have eroded a steep hill into the land. And this is where you do eventually run into this thing. You are standing on one bank, the north bank of this creek, and you see it standing perfectly still and yet writhing on the other bank.
I think this is the moment where Chris transforms.
All right, go ahead and roll that transform.
Oh God. And that is a 2.
Oh no.
Wow, okay.
Snake eyes, shall we say. I think Chris goes through her transformation. So we see the dirt rise up. We see the wings unfurl. We see the talon-like fingernails reach into a stone pedestal and pull out a softball. And then she understands what it is that she's standing in front of and the fact that she's on her own. She doesn't have her team with her yet. And she's scared.
Yeah. This thing turns almost robotically, so its head is pointing in your direction. And you can see the sword in its hand. And then the snakes rush off of its body, and you can see this thing looks almost, I would say, skeletal if someone didn't know what bones were and had made their best guess. The snakes slough off of its body and rush into the water. There are 3 zones in this fight. There is the north bank, there is the river itself, and there is the south bank. And it is worth noting that the river itself will slow you if you attempt to cross it, which means that movement made into or out of this zone does not take effect until the next turn of the person who is trying to make that movement.
So that was the creature's move, so it's Chris's turn?
This is the beginning of the fight, and player characters always have the first turn. What are you doing?
Okay. Chris is taking a moment to examine that writhing, stock still body and getting over her fear for a second. So she's using her movement to read. She's lining up a shot, and she's going to do what she can to slow this thing down so her friends can get here.
All right, for my memory, can you quote read?
Examine a target, gaining a bonus to fight actions against that target equal to your current light. Bonus lasts until the end of the current scene or until you use read against another target.
Perfect. Thank you.
Rain saying for my memory like she didn't write this entire thing.
You say that like I can remember, like, what, 40 plus pages after months of.
Fair.
I'm doing my best.
It's okay. So, Chris has her softball, and she has sized this thing up now. And she takes a breath. Yellow thing first, and throws that ball.
All right, go ahead and make that roll.
So, I would like to use place. Her current light is +3, but the max bonus is 4, correct?
Yes.
So I'm rolling +4 here. And that is 9 on the dice, +4 is 13.
All right, so that's
Woo!
a full success, which means that you deal 2 stress.
Chris grins. Maybe she does have this.
And as you grin, one of the masses of snakes lurches out of the water toward you and is just going to start biting you all over. It does, however, miss. It rolled a 6.
Chris dances backwards ever so slightly.
I think that as they come toward you, you reflexively beat your wings and knock yourself backward for a moment, just out of their reach.
Ooh, I like that.
Top of the round. What are you doing?
Are my friends here yet?
Nope.
And one of the snakes, is there only one massive snakes?
There are 3.
Lovely. So there's one massive snakes on the north bank with Chris,
Yes,
2 in the river, and then the hive is still on the south bank.
correct.
Okay. What she did last time worked. She's going to do it again. That is 5 + 4 is 9.
Yeah, that strikes home. You see this thing lift the sword as it is about to swing it downward right before your rocks strike home and knock this thing to flinders, and it collapses, and the sword falls and lands point down in the mud.
Okay, one down. Snakes to go.
Snakes to go indeed.
Can that be the episode title?
Yes, it is.
A whole new meaning on snakeout. You ordered 3 snakes. Would you like them to go?
Yeah, we're getting snakeout. Get in one of those little boxes, you know.
Yes. Thank you for completing the joke. That's okay. You have knives you can twist in us later.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that one rolled a 7. So it does bite down into your arm, and you take 1 stress.
Okay.
I'm sorry, real quick. I am going to say that was one of the snakes that was in the river moving to the bank and biting you.
Okay.
I should have specified that. My apologies.
Okay. Chris's face twists in a little bit of pain, and she backs up momentarily, her wings sort of curling around her protectively in an attempt to fend these things off. And she stares them down, and it's kind of hard to throw point blank. You usually toss a softball if you're going to be that close to something, so she throws another ball as hard as she can at the snakes that are still in the river.
Go ahead and roll for it, and remember that you are not benefiting from Reed right now.
Okay. That is 9 on the dice plus 2 for place. Is 11.
The last set of snakes don't quite make it out of the river. There's some thrashing in the water before they stop moving. And the ones who are on the shore are going to continue to bite you. And they do also. It is weird that my dice are rolling the same. That's weird. Anyway, they are also going to roll a 7, and they're going to continue biting you. You take 1 stress.
Okay.
Top of the round, you hear movement at the top of the hill whose embankment you are standing on that forms the shore. And finally, Eliza and Des appear above you.
Eliza sees snakes going for Chris and has a sword in her hand, so she's just gonna run straight in and start stabbing snakes.
So you're taking the first turn?
I guess so.
All right. I am dumb. I just realized that I forgot to apply the slow condition to the snakes, but it's fine.
It's
We'll
okay,
keep
they were
going.
aquatic snakes.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
they're darkness. It's fine. They don't have to have the slow condition.
Eliza rolls a 7 on the dice, and reading patterns 9, so stabbing snakes successfully, I think.
Is there a pattern to read with these swarms of snakes?
Yeah, you've got to predict where the snake is going to be. Either way, it's a mixed success.
All right. So you are able to pick off more of these until there's only one cluster left attacking Chris. And you hear them hissing, "The rider needs his sword." They're going to bite into Chris again. And that's a full success. Unfortunately for them, that still makes you only take 1 more stress.
Okay. Chris winces again. Cat. Oi!
Okay. Then I think Des is gonna try to like pull some of these snakes off of Chris, try to like intercede between the two to do a protect roll.
All right, go ahead.
With endure?
Yes.
That is 6 plus 3 is 9 plus 1. That is a 10 total.
Nice, full success. And these things are not particularly intelligent, so they are going to continue biting at Chris, even though you are fending them off. And they would hit, except that you are grabbing them and smacking them and pulling them away.
Yes.
Just they are too busy trying to attack Chris to notice you, and you are taking advantage of that to keep them off of Chris.
Perfect.
So I believe that is all three of you.
There's a moment where Chris looks at Desdemona with sheer gratefulness in her eyes.
And I think in that moment, Hazel leaps from the hill above you to land on these things and try and swing at them. But twists her ankle on the landing.
Oh no.
No.
Hazel!
So she is off balance and takes a moment to recover. They are, yeah, that distracted them enough. I think they're going to bite at Hazel, which also misses. Good lord. Who's going next?
All right, time to be done with this. I think Chris is going to take one more shot here.
Keep in mind that you are artillery, so you cannot attack into the same zone as you.
You are correct. Chris is going to move.
If you move into the water, that's slow, so it won't take effect, and you can't attack this round.
Yeah. Chris is so focused on trying to hit these things that she backs up into the river without realizing how quick the current is.
It's actually not that quick. It's the current itself is not that quick. It is a very slow-moving river. However, I will ask
Okay.
you this. Because I forgot to apply slow to the snakes, I will forgive it for you if you want.
Let me reflavor. I think it's more interesting if Chris tries and can't. So Chris tries to back into the river.
And that is when you realize the bottom of the river is a very fine silt. And heels don't do well in silt.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's a moment where Chris's knees kind of bend funny, and she has to stabilize herself with her wings outstretched and her hand on the bank, and she grimaces because she can't make her shot.
You do still have your action if you want to do anything with that.
I thought the slow condition meant that she couldn't really do anything.
It means that your movement doesn't take effect until the beginning of your next turn. So if you wanted to read a target, you could still do that.
I see. I think she's too distracted with dealing with the river to be able to read anything right now.
That makes sense. These snakes are going to keep biting at Hazel. And this time they're going to hit. They have recovered much faster than she has, and they are just swarming all over her and biting her. So she takes more
Ah.
stress.
Well, then I think Des is going to try to protect Hazel this time.
All right.
Same deal. The technique of frantically pulling at snakes that served her so well before. She's going to try again. Just barely. That is 6 plus 1. That's a 7 total.
Oof. I love it when the modifiers matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're able to start trying to pull them off as they keep biting. Yeah, so you are able to successfully pull them off. It's a near thing a couple of times, but as you did roll a partial success, and partial successes round down, you are able to round that one stress she would have taken to 0.
Perfect.
Who's next?
Well, I think Eliza's the only one who hasn't gone this round. And she's just going to step forward, her sword leaking these soft yellow flames, and she's going to try to deal with these last snakes. And she rolls an 8, which becomes a 10 if reading patterns applies. So stab, stab, stab.
I'm still not convinced that it does for snakes.
Okay, well,
You would have to actually be able to read an enemy, like an
all
enemy
right.
with some kind of logic to it. But in this case, that doesn't matter. It is still a point of stress, which is enough to kill these snakes. And Hazel takes a moment to recover and catches her breath. Fuck. Ow. Okay. Smiles at death. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
You all right there?
I'm I'll be good. Um, and Chris, you can see in the bank of the other side of the brook, there's the sword sitting point down in the mud.
Minor thing. Can that qualify the light trigger rescue a friend from physical peril?
Oh, it absolutely does.
Thought so. Okay.
Also,
Eliza's fire shifts from a soft yellow to a shining gold that actually reflects the moonlight somehow.
I love it.
can I use the darkness trigger, put yourself in harm's way for a friend?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Chris takes a second to pull her high heel boots out of the silt, and she's already wet. She sits down on the edge of the bank with her feet still in the river. Her wings sort of fold up now that she's done, and she just points. Sword.
Oh, I got it. And Eliza still hasn't fully done her transformation sequence, but she just leaps across the river on jets of fire coming out of her feet.
Yep, you cross pretty easily and are able to, I assume, pick up the sword.
She picks the sword up, looks at the blade, looks for the sheath.
The sheath appears to have been discarded off to one side. You notice this as you are holding it, and Chris, you notice it with your eyesight. This thing seems to be almost thrumming with, Eliza, you want to call it excitement. It knows this riverbank.
Well, that's not weird and terrifying at all.
Eliza is going to. You said the sheath was here?
Yes, it's been discarded in the foliage off to one side.
She's going to go grab that and sheath the sword before she comes back to the other side of the riverbank.
Hazel, you okay?
She's got one hand over one of the snake bites. Yeah, I'll be fine. There's a there's a first aid kit in the car, so
Okay. And then, that having been addressed, Chris looks to Eliza. That thing
I don't like it.
uh, seemed energized, like a player before a match.
What's going on with it?
I don't know. And I. Here, Des. And she offers the sword to Des.
Des takes it. Can she feel the same thing?
yes, you can feel it begin to shake and vibrate in your hand as it wants to be used.
It like rattles in the sheath kind of thing.
Yep. It's more of a vibration than audible rattling, but
Hmm. Okay, are we? I don't like this. This thing. It should just be a sword. Okay, the creepy snake skeleton man uh wants to do things.
Oh, what happened to. Did you see the skeleton man? Or snake man?
Yep. And I obliterated him with some rocks.
Oh, good
Oh,
job.
that's great news.
That and some snakes. Thank
Hmm.
you for getting the last of them off me.
Yeah.
That that was a lot.
Sorry we took so long. Um,
Yeah, my shoes are. They got sucked into the mud a little bit. It was not great.
What does that sword want? It's acting like a, I don't know, like a hunting dog.
yeah, I feel it feels needy, but I mean, I'm just gonna say it. I don't want to get stabbed.
Hazel, do you have any ideas?
Hazel stops and thinks for a moment. Uh, I mean, maybe it wants to, I don't know, be used or something?
Eliza reaches over and grabs the sword out of the sheath where Des is holding it. All right, only one way to tell. And just ever so softly, she draws the blade across the back of her forearm.
The blade has been dulled over years. It does not actually cut you, but as you draw it across and then finish the cut as as it leaves your skin and you go to, actually follow through, it catches in the air, and
Oh,
you watch as the very air itself begins to separate as you pull this thing, and a wound in space begins to open.
Fuck.
Dark smoke begins to seethe out. An acrid smell that none of you recognize greets your nose. And as this wound grows longer and longer, it begins to separate, and you begin to see on the other side a forest, a river, this river. And you can see the forest. The trees are wrong. They are made of those same sinewy tissues reaching up like skeletal hands into a gray sky. The river is slow and sludgy. And from the other side, you can hear cackling, howling, gibbering as monsters see the cage of their prison begin to open. And that, I think, is where we're going to end this episode.
oh.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it so much.
Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. Thank you to my players. I hope to see you all next time, and have a good night. Thank you again for joining us on this adventure. With Conviction is a production of Silver Maiden Games. If you would like to play Conviction, check out the game at silvermaidengames.itch.io. Music for the intro and outro of this podcast is A Soul with Conviction by Doom Vega, who you can find on Bandcamp. Music within the episodes is by Rachel Rose Mitchell, who you can find on Bandcamp and Spotify. All rights to the music are retained by their original artist. Production and editing are done by myself and the With Conviction cast. Thank you all. This would not be what it is without you. You can find this podcast on Spotify and YouTube or silvermaidengames.wordpress.com. You can also find more about the game, podcast, and ways to contact us at silvermaidengames.wordpress.com.